This is the Duncan Recital Hall at the Shepherd School of Music in Rice University. I decided to do it here because this is one of my alma maters, and they have a wonderful hall and good pianos, and I've made 2 other recordings here before, so I know how it works. The name of the composer is Jean Francaix. One day I was looking for new repertoire because I was preparing a program for a recital in the south of France, and I was told that the music needed to be lighthearted. So I checked out a lot of music from the library and wasn't really coming up with anything. And one of my students suggested that I look at the 5 encores by Jean Francaix. And I did, ultimately not playing them on that program, but I thought this music is really interesting. So I did a little more research and found out that he was a prolific composer and that there was a tremendous amount of piano music out there that nobody had ever played before, let alone recorded. And so I took it upon myself to track down all the music and try and make a recording. Went to a music store in Paris. It's actually very, very good, and asked them if they could show me everything that he had written for piano, and I think I pretty well covered it all. Jean Francaix was a tremendously prolific composer. The story goes that even before he'd finished one piece, he was already starting to work on another piece. He wrote for virtually every instrument and in every combination. I think it can be said that his music is marked by charm, wit. What I find throughout his music is humor. I mean, this man must have had a tremendous sense of humor. He must have been, and at times silly, just plain silly. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because I think it's a good way to look at life. I should also mention the French connection, because my father's French, and that probably has enhanced or has inspired my interest in French composers. I'm naturally very, very drawn to the French language because I think it is so beautiful. And from my experience, a lot of French composers write music with a lot of color, and I'm also very drawn to color in music making and piano playing. When I was 5 years old, my father, and I remember him, he announced, "Nicole shall take piano lessons." That's my memory. And so I guess my mother just signed me up for piano lessons, and when I first started playing, I had one of those little Schroeder pianos. It probably had maybe 2 octaves on it, with really wide keys. That's where I got my start. I continued to take piano lessons all along, sometimes with a good teacher, sometimes not. But my parents told me that they wanted me to continue until I was 18 years old. There was a pivotal point, and that was when I was about 14 years old. I had been preparing for a competition. Now, in today's world, it would have been considered no big deal. This small competition in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I remember my teacher didn't really think I had much of a chance. I was prepared, and I was going to give a good performance, but she didn't think I could shine above the undergraduate students. At the time, I had a friend with me, and I'd played, and then we were waiting for all the other contestants to play, and then the judges to adjudicate, et cetera, et cetera. And my friend and I just went for a walk around the block because I couldn't stand the tension. It was a big block, and suddenly we're halfway back to the hall, and I see my father coming toward us. And he comes up in his wry little smile and he says, "Number 2 won." And I realized that was me. I'm sure I was shaking. I was only 14 at the time. I did my undergraduate at the University of Texas in Austin. It was a wonderful place to study music. I mean, it was a huge campus, but it was 80 miles from my parents, so I had some freedoms, but at the same time they were still close by. I felt like the student body at the School of Music was very much one big family. I got a very good education and a very inexpensive education while I was there, and it readied me for studying, I think, with John Perry at Rice. I wanted to study with John Perry, but it's not easy to get into a studio. First of all, you have to make contact, and then he's got to hear you play. So my mother called Rice, and she said, "Can I talk to John Perry?" And I guess they put her in connection with him. And it turned out that John was coming to San Antonio to judge a piano competition. And so she invited him to come over for dinner one night in the middle of the competition, and I was there, and I played for him. I remember I played for him before we had dinner. And he tested my ears, and he listened to me play, and he didn't really say much. And then we had dinner with, actually, there were other guests. And all through dinner, I'm thinking, oh my God, does he want me? You know, why am I not getting any kind of response? I mean, maybe he's not interested in having me as a student. and then as the night wore on, the guests left, and my parents and I were sitting there with John, you know, in the living room, and he said, well, if you would like to be in my studio, I have space. And I said, well, of course. And that was the beginning of my master's. Little did I know how much that man was going to influence me. And then I finished my doctorate at the Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, Maryland. My parents live in San Antonio, Texas, and I consider that home. I've lived here in Lincoln for 13 years. I am still not used to the cold weather. I love the heat. I live in a house that I have all to myself, with my 6 kitties and my big piano and a few other possessions. I'm not somebody who needs a lot. I don't need a lot of fancy things. What I need is just food for the cats and food for me, and occasionally have the piano tuned. And I have found that bicycling is a wonderful form of not only exercise but transportation. So I try to ride my bike lots of places, except to the grocery store, because I can't carry groceries home. And then one other passion is an organization called the Cat House, which is a not-for-profit, no-kill cat shelter that I, along with several other people, started in, I think it was '99. And in the time that we've been open, we have probably adopted out over 1,000 cats. We have a somewhat rigorous application process. My responsibilities include serving on the board and also reviewing and then interviewing people who've applied for adoption. And we don't adopt everybody. And we try to hook up the right kitty with the right family. And we also have a freestanding shelter in the middle of town where people are welcome to come and visit kitties. I teach at the University of Nebraska. I teach piano to undergraduate and graduate students who are pursuing degrees in piano performance, and I also am the chief advisor for the BM and BA degrees. I really enjoy and am inspired by working with my students. I like to teach both one-on-one, and then when the opportunity arises, I enjoy teaching chamber music and also giving master classes. There's nothing better than to be in the room when a student gets it. You know, you say something, and finally, after several weeks of struggle, suddenly they understand what it is that you want, and they're able to do it at the keyboard. I started working on this project probably back in March. There was a tremendous amount of music to learn, so it's taken a while to get it all figured out. I don't know that much about Jean Francaix, but from what I can tell, he must have been a relatively happy individual, because his music is so happy. He pokes a lot of fun at life, and I like that too. And I think any fears that I had about this project not being worth the effort, I think have been set aside. I don't worry about it anymore, because the music is worth putting on tape, is worth sharing with the world.